Vegetarians might have a higher risk of stroke than meat eaters, study says. Interesting. So I was introduced to this article via an email from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And despite the fact that there was other research links present in that email, this is the one that headlined, so to speak. The subject heading of the email was the title of this article here that it linked to. And so needless to say, I was intrigued. So I dug into this a little bit and found some interesting things out. So here we go. Non-meat diets have soared in popularity, with many people ditching beef, pork, and chicken in pursuit of health and environmental benefits and concerns about animal welfare. All good reasons. However, a new study suggests that vegetarians and vegans may be at higher risk of stroke than their meat-eating counterparts. Although, those who don't eat meat have a lower chance of coronary heart disease, according to the new paper, published in the medical journal The BMJ on Wednesday. It does seem that the lower risk of coronary heart disease does exceed the higher risk of stroke, if we look at the absolute numbers, said lead researcher Tammy Tong, nutritional epidemiologist at the Nuffield Department of Population Health at the University of Oxford. So later on, we have still some researchers were skeptical of the stroke finding. The research shows that people who cut out meat from their diet are significantly healthier than meat eaters. Dr. Malcolm Finlay, consultant cardiologist at Bart's Heart Centre, Queen Mary University of London, told the Science Media Center. He said the study put too much weight on a complex statistical method to try and correct for the fact that vegetarians were very much healthier than meat eaters. So what does that mean? Complex statistical method. Well, if we go to the actual study here, first of all, I can show you this. So they gathered data from individuals of all these categories. So meat eaters, fish eaters, and those who don't eat meat or fish. They clumped vegetarians and vegans together. The average meat eater was generally older than the other two groups, so we have to take that into consideration. Unlike the mainstream news media, I am objective when talking about these things. But let's move to medical history here. So prior high blood pressure, and these are percentages here in parentheses. Vegetarian group with the lowest. Prior high blood cholesterol, vegetarian group with the lowest. Prior diabetes, vegetarian group with the lowest. Receiving long-term treatment for any illness, vegetarian group with the lowest. Body mass index, vegetarian group with the lowest. Total cholesterol, vegetarian group with the lowest. So why would you collect this information if you weren't going to include it in your conclusions? So let's go to the statistical analysis here to see what they were talking about with the complex methods. So to estimate population impact of vegetarian diets on cardiovascular health, we assess the absolute risk difference for each outcome between meat eaters, fish eaters, and vegetarians. Predicted incidence and absolute risk differences were presented as per 1,000 population over 10 years. So in meat eaters, starting down here, predicted incidence over this period of each outcome was calculated as 1 minus S sub R times 1,000, where S sub R equals 1 minus observed incidence in meat eaters to the 10th power, and represents the predicted 10-year survival in meat eaters. For all other diet groups, Predicted incidence was calculated as 1 minus S sub r to the HR times 1,000, where HR represents the hazard ratio or confidence intervals for each outcome in that diet group. So they used different formulas for the different diets to assess their predicted outcomes. Okay, so what did the data actually say? They followed individuals for 18 years here. And what did they find during those 18 years? Well, here's a chart here. So on the left side, we have all the actual data that was collected. This is not using any sort of funky formulas or predicting the future of anything. This was, okay, do you eat meat? Did you have a heart attack? Are you a vegetarian? Did you have a stroke, etc.? So they grouped it into cases and person years. So what I did is I actually divided these out to come up with person years per case. That's what I'm interested in. So let's see what that comes out to. What did they actually observe? Not what are they predicting using these wacky formulas that nobody can understand. So here we have acute myocardial infarction. That's heart attack. And we want to have higher numbers here. The higher the number, the better, because that means the more person years it's going to take to experience one of these events. So we see fish eaters and vegetarians both much better off than meat eaters, with vegetarians the best. Same thing with ischemic heart disease and ischemic stroke. Now these basically the same mechanism. We have atherosclerosis, or buildup of plaque in the arteries, which blocks blood flow. It's just a matter of, is it affecting the heart or the brain? So again, we're seeing for every 212 person years of a meat eater, we're seeing one case of ischemic heart disease. It takes 558 years for vegetarians. Stroke, same thing. It's consistent here so far. Fish eaters and vegetarians way better off than meat eaters. Vegetarians still the best. Now hemorrhagic stroke. This is due to bleeding in the brain, usually caused by high blood pressure or a brain injury of some kind, but there could be other causes too. Fish eaters have the slight edge, although vegetarians still better off than meat eaters. How about total stroke? Vegetarians are the best. So I don't care if you're telling me I have a higher risk of hemorrhagic stroke. I want to know about total stroke. And I think most people would too. I'd rather not have a stroke at all. If you tell me that I have a slightly higher risk of hemorrhagic stroke, but a much lower risk of ischemic stroke, I'm going to take that. What's the total? So we see across the board, vegetarians dominate meat eaters. Stroke, heart disease, heart attack. So what are we talking about here? Research shows that people who cut out meat from their diet are significantly healthier than meat eaters. These headlines, they're all just BS. A lot of people stand to lose a lot of money if more people start adopting plant-based diets. And we have to be aware of this. We have to know how to analyze on our own and not rely on the headlines. And after doing my own analysis, what the evidence here says is that time to go vegan is now.